component into being a fast and explosive athlete is to try and increase and improve the effectiveness of the stretch shortening cycle. So the stretch shortening cycle is an active stretch of the muscle followed by an immediate fast and forceful shortening of the muscle, so a concentric movement. So they've got three different phases. We've got eccentric, amortization and concentric. This is the main one that we're going to be talking about here, the eccentric phase. This is where we're controlling the downward forces and the stretch of the muscles. The main reason why we want to talk about this is because we do our testing at Boxing Science. We use two jump tests. We use a counter movement jump and a squat jump. The main reason why we use both jump assessments is to see what the difference is between counter movement jump and squat jump height. Now, what we like to see is the difference being counter movement jump is 3 to 4 centimeters higher than your squat jump, because if you're thinking about elastic band, you're basically stretching it and then letting go and then it should fly up. Whereas like a squat jump, you sit down, hold the movement and then it flies up there, and you lose that elasticity when you're doing the squat jump compared to the counter movement jump. So you should be able to jump higher when doing the counter movement jump. Whereas like in boxing, what we see is an average of 0.7 centimeters, so we're quite far away from general athletes. Now this shows to me and to other strength and conditioning coaches is that boxers struggle with the eccentric phase, so we need to improve eccentric utilization. Now there's many ways that we can try and improve this, mainly through strength training, getting stronger, especially on your squats and lunges. But we need to look at this in a plyometric point of view to be able to learn how to absorb force and then reproduce force nice and fast. So we want to improve eccentric utilization, and we do it two ways at Boxing Science. We increase our ability to absorb force, and we do jumping activities that overload that eccentric phase. So we can do it a number of ways. We can do it through increasing the height where we land from. This is particularly with the force absorption. You might have seen us use altitude landings, and we'll talk about that in a short while when we're doing the exercise demonstrations. We can increase the weight, and we can increase the velocity of them downward forces. This will overload the eccentric phase, which will help improve our stretch shortening cycle. So in this next section, we're going to show you how to absorb force and also to overload the eccentric phase over a number of different plyometric exercises. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to absorb force to help improve the eccentric phase of the stretch shortening cycle. Now, the main exercise that we use at Boxing Science is altitude landings, but if an athlete is struggling to get into these positions safely and effectively, let's start off with a more basic exercise to teach them how to absorb force and to learn what we call the power position. So it's literally going to be a tiptoe into an altitude landing. I'll show you a quick demonstration. Okay, so we start off on our tiptoes, arms overhead, and we're increasing that velocity as we go down, which will increase the downward forces that our athlete needs to control. This is a safe way to teach how to control the force without increasing the impact forces of the hips, knees, and ankle joints. The power position is where you're in like a quarter to half squat position, hips pushed back, knees on line with toes, and we're sitting round about the balls or the heels of our feet. And all our lower body muscles switched on to control that force. To progress this, we can literally just go try and generate more speed. If your athlete is struggling with that, you can just go light speed, or you can just go into a little jump and learn how to get into that position to absorb that force. Then bring them along into faster exercises, faster reps, stamping on the floor, getting into that strong power position, creating that stiffness to be able to absorb that force. Now we're going to move on to altitude landings, which is a great exercise to control them downward forces and create the foundations for powerful performance. So I'm going to demonstrate altitude landing. You might have seen this on Instagram quite a few times and not know why we use it, so I'm going to talk you through it now. So altitude landing is all about force absorption and trying to increase that absorption of the downward forces during the eccentric phase. So like I said, when we do counter movement jumps, we've seen that boxers struggle with the eccentric utilization. This exercise overloads that, creates them foundations for more powerful performance. So even though that this exercise doesn't look like a powerful exercise, doesn't look like it's going to improve your jump height, it's very, very beneficial. It's really effective. It's what we use in the initial stages of our boxing science programs. So to do the altitude landing, you're going to get onto a box. More or less, I'd say start on around about 30 centimeters to make sure that you're getting the technique right. But then to really challenge the downward forces, you want to be getting onto a box about 60 centimeters. So we're going to take a step off, 1 foot in front. It doesn't matter which foot because you're going to be landing on both. We're going to be landing into that quarter squat position onto your heels, and it's a stiffening effect. Lower body, core switched on, and having it hands out just for counterbalance there. See from side on, dipping back, my hips are pushed back, knees on line with toes, and all my legs are absorbing that force. Now, a mistake that can be made whilst doing altitude landings is to not control that force and try and land as softly as possible, but we're not absorbing that force as quickly as possible, okay? So a lot of people say that they want to try and land softly. That shows that they're absorbing the force, but really they're not absorbing the force as quick. We want to create that stiffening effect to absorb that force as quickly as possible. Also, what they might do is go there and be too upright. Knee dominant, not using the hips, it's just quads, and really taxing them knee joints and ankle joints there. So you want a happy medium in between both, get into that quarter squat position, create that stiffening effect as soon as possible. Now, main progressions of the altitude landing, it's obviously increasing height, and I'll show you that in a second, but also increasing the weight. So you can get a body weight vest or some light dumbbells. You want to go from a lower stance, from a lower box ideally, but for demonstration purposes, I'll just do it from 60 centimeters, dropping down and landing. Arms by my side, still getting into that solid quarter squat position. Then we want to increase the height. Of course, increase height, increase challenge, so your athlete really needs to be switched on with this and get into that strong posture. So they need a few weeks of developing that technique before they step on and do an exercise like this. You might have seen it when we on Instagram where we're going from a really, really high box. This is not just done on session 1. This is taken from weeks of building up them foundations and movement qualities to be able to absorb force to make it a safe and effective exercise. I haven't really got enough space in this performance centre. So we'll step off, creating that stiffness straight away, getting into that solid position. Good. So that's force absorption. Now we want to look to try and challenge the eccentric phase whilst performing jumping actions. So to improve the stretch shortening cycle, we want to overload the eccentric phase. There's 3 ways that we can do that. We can jump from a higher position, we can increase the weight, or we can increase the velocity. I'm going to show you all 3 options now, just with a handful of exercises. The first one is just a falling counter movement jump, or as a lot of people call it, a depth jump, where we're going to be stepping off a low box. I'd start from a little bit lower than this. I'd probably start on a 15 centimeter one. I'm going to start off 30 here. So I'm going to just step off, don't matter what, either foot, as we're going to be landing on 2. Hands on hips to start off with. Dropping down into that counter movement jump. So we're actually dipping our hips back and we're looking for that longer stretch shortening cycle compared to what people do. The drop jump where they're just tapping on the floor. We're dipping our hips back, keeping the chest up, driving through the midfoot to heels, and we're powerfully extending those hips. What we need to be careful of is hinging at the hips too much, trying to gain that momentum through extending the spine. Want to just literally get into that power position that we've talked about a little bit earlier on in the video, keeping the chest up high, and quickly transitioning from that eccentric phase into the concentric phase. We can increase the velocity of this by using an arm swing. So as we come down, swing the arms back and driving up. And we can also start off from a higher box. Next one that I'm going to show you is increased velocity. And this is similar to the start of the video where we're talking about using that arm swing to create that velocity coming down, to increase downward forces, to challenge that eccentric phase of the jump, to then drive up into concentric movement. So start here, arms up onto tiptoes, drop down, and then into nice and powerful counter movement jump. As you can see, getting into that strong power position, chest is up, hips are pushed back, knees on line with toes, using that arm swing to create momentum on the way down, but to create momentum on the way up as well. You can also increase the velocity with hands on hips. We can do a little stamp before we go, then drive up. This is more reactive strength and shorter stretch shortening cycle around the calf complex. And toes, create that stamp and then drive up from there. So this is increasing ground reaction forces, which will transfer into more powerful performance and greater jump height. The last one is weight. So we can do counter movement jump just with dumbbells, arms straight, shoulders pinned back. We're dipping down into that power position and then we're driving up into the jump. But as you can see, I've still got the weights in my hands, so that's not overloading the eccentric phase on its own. It's also overloading everything, overloading the amortization phase and the concentric phase as well. So what you can do is dumbbell accentuated jump, where we're throwing the dumbbells down as we get to the bottom. So we're overloading that eccentric phase only, letting them go, and then we get a powerful kind of stretch reflex at the bottom to drive up into that concentric phase. As you can see, I'm dropping them out to the side forcefully. I'm not chucking them down because I want, if you just chuck them down from there, you're not actually overloading. If you think about it, if you throw it from there, I'm actually letting go of the weight pretty early. So what you want to do, you want to get happy medium. You don't want to be going there, letting it go. The dumbbells go across your feet like that, because that can end up being dangerous. Seen that a few times when the athletes aren't been concentrating. You want to basically get happy medium where you're throwing them down to the side, but you're still increasing that weight load during the eccentric phase. And there's other ways that you can do this, either with heavier dumbbells, or you can also do them with bands as well. So that's the end of Ask Boxing Science episode 3. Hope you've enjoyed it and taken a lot away that you can start putting into your coaching and into your training programs. If you've got any questions about the exercise techniques that we've used today, please leave them in the comment box below. And if you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel yet, please hit the subscribe button and check out all the content that we've been putting up, from strength and conditioning workouts to highlights of here in the Boxing Science Performance Centre. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you're not missing out. Hopefully see you on the next episode.